Welcome to the Cloak and Dagger podcast. On this podcast, we'll be talking about freeform show Cloak and Dagger. Here are your hosts, Kat and Butch.
Hello, Cloak and Dagger fans, and welcome to another episode of the Cloak and Dagger podcast. My name is Kat, and I am here as always with my co-host Butch.
Cardamoms were the secret ingredient.
They sure were, and we are here this week to review and discuss episode 7 of Cloak and Dagger, which was entitled Lotus Eaters. So what were your overall thoughts on episode 7, Butch?
Well, just like everyone else, there's a lot of praise going around for this episode. This is the best episode of the season, and that's like that happens for a lot of the episodes. But I think for this one, a lot of people were enjoyed the fact that we finally not only get Cloak and Dagger going on a mission together, but we also get the usual, punches and kicks to the heart,
Yeah.
that we've come to expect from the show, and a bit of a happy ending this week. So we'll get into that. How about you? How do you feel about the episode?
Yeah, I think by far this was my favorite episode of the season so far. And I say that when we go through each episode each week, but I really really liked this episode and how they were able to work together, and like you said, the emotional all the emotional aspects of this show were just like so spot on, and the acting was fantastic. They really did a good job in this episode. So we're going to go into our breakdown of this episode, but first we're going to take a break for one of our sister podcasts.
Hey there, Cloak and Dagger fans. Abel here, and I am with my new co-host Sasha, and we have a new podcast called Spill the Reality.
Join us as we spill all the tea on all of our favorite reality shows every Monday.
You can find our podcast everywhere podcasts are located, and thank you for listening to this. Now enjoy your show.
Okay, we're back. So again, this episode was titled Lotus Eaters. So of course I needed to look up what Lotus Eaters was referencing. And I found on Wikipedia, of all places, that Lotus Eaters is actually a reference to Greek mythology. And they were a race of people who lived on an island. And the island was dominated by lotus plants, and the lotus fruits and flowers were the primary food of the people, but they were also a narcotic. So it caused the people who lived on the island to live in like a full, peaceful apathy state. So it was a really fitting episode title. I think, just the overall thought and the overall premise of this episode is actually kind of terrifying if you think about it. If you're looking at Ivan Hess and he's in this catatonic state,
right?
He's living this nightmare over and over and over again, and he's stuck that way, and he's been stuck that way for 8 years, and that's why he's in this catatonic state. That's terrifying to think that could happen to a person.
Right. It's terrifying, but it's not terrifying for that person because that guy's kind of oblivious to it, right? But if you're someone else and you see it happening to someone, it's something that it's not just scary because of the fact that you're seeing the effects of it, but also, I'd like to think maybe all of us know someone who's living through that, or someone is who's kind of trapped in their own minds, and you see
you've experienced that time in your life before, or you've at least seen someone in that sort of state before.
Yeah.
And that just got
terrible.
Me that creeped me out a little bit. It was writers, okay, this is deep already. But in the first scene, we're actually opening up in the past, and we get little Mina, which I loved. So we can add little Mina to little Tandy and little Tyrone. And it's Mina and her dad. And her dad is played by Tim Kang. And he was excellent. Fantastic job as Ivan Hess. But she's in the kitchen of, the place that we saw her living still when she was there with intern Tandy. and she's making her dad's lunch as he's ready to go to work, and we know he's a Roxxon scientist, and she's using her
Right.
little easy bake oven to make him just one heart cookie. And she is superstitious. She doesn't want him to eat the cookie until he gets to work, and she's saying, that's you always come home because you don't eat the cookie until you get to work. But I thought that was a touching scene to show that they had a really good relationship as father and daughter. What did you think?
Yeah, we see a lot of the stuff that Mina was just speaking about on the previous episode. So we get some of the background of their relationship, and we can see that they're pretty close to each other. They're engaged enough to be like jabbing with each other. Their relationship isn't like a strict, father authoritative father figure to her,
Right.
But I don't know, personally, I didn't like the casting of teenage Mina in the sense that she doesn't look too much like current Mina for me, because she's a little bit older than young Tandy and young Tyrone.
It's true. So it did show that she is a couple years older.
Yeah, and I feel like somebody in that age would already have their I don't know, their facial features set. But then again, I mean, it's not a big deal. Well, we know who she is. I don't think there was ever any confusion because she was the one baking. So yeah, that's just a little tiny thing. I was like,
I've
I
heard
wish they
that
got someone
complaint
who looked like
from-
her.
Yeah, I've heard that complaint in other shows, specifically other freeform shows, when they're trying to cast like the teenage years of a person. And you're right, it's hard to cast a teenage person because the person playing
Yeah.
them, I mean, it's hard to get somebody who's gonna look like them. So I have heard that complaint before. I get it. Definitely.
I feel like they could have pulled off just getting Ali to play her, because Ali has like a face that her face can go from like, I don't know, 30 to 18 or 16 for me.
Especially if she was gonna be young, like a little older than Ty and Tandy were at that time anyway.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
but they were cute.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
You see.
Yeah.
So then we move forward, and Ivan is going to work in his flashback scene, and he's asking about the conductive shielding tiles, and people are telling him, oh, they never came in, they were never ordered, and he's getting angry. And obviously that's something that's supposed to help conduct the heat, because we learned in the last episode that the problem they were having on the rig was that whatever they're mining for, drilling for, is 10 times hotter than oil, and that's the whole problem. So these conductive shielding tiles never came in. He's getting angry, and he's asking to talk to Nathan Bowen, and then all of a sudden the alarms go off, and then we're left in his dream. So that
Right.
was an important insight as to why the actual explosion happened that day.
Yeah,
So-
and we established last week that through Stan that Roxxon is the kind of company that cuts corners. So
Yeah.
that we get that follow up with this one.
Absolutely. So then we go into the present, and we have a great scene with Ty and Tandy, and they're back in the church, and this is after Ty has calmed down, and he's talking to her. He can't believe what happened with Dwayne from the previous episode. This was his one shot. He's thinking is that Dwayne was the one person who knew that Connor shot Billy, and
Right.
now it's gone. His chance is all gone. And Tandy says to Ty that her dad would always say when situations got tough that our failures are the steps we climb. And I
Yeah.
thought that was an awesome line for her to throw in there, and she kind of just left that in there for Ty to think about for the rest of the episode. But then we don't really dwell too much on Ty's problems, because Tandy kind of slides in there and smiles and says, I kind of have problems of my own, but you can really help me out with this right now, so let's concentrate on my side of the story for this episode. So Tandy asks him for help, and Ty being Ty, he agrees to go along with her. So then they end up in the nursing home, and his reaction to coming in the nursing home and then being in there with Ivan Hesse, he's looking at her and he says, is this normal for you? And it's like, she again, I don't really know how she got in there and how she got permission to be in there without Mina there, but Ty seemed to be questioning that as well.
Right.
But she explains to him that, this is Ivan Hess. He was the only survivor of the oil rig explosion. And then, she's telling them we need to go inside his mind because there's a door there. There's something that we need to fix this. I think we can help him. And Ty says, well, that explosion is what caused Detective Connors to shoot my brother. So, I guess I'll go along with you and help you out on this. And then he says, you owe me to her. So I like the little banter that they have, the back and forth in this scene before they go in. But they do agree. So Ty and Tandy each put a hand on Ivan Hess, and they use their powers to see hope and then to see fear to kind of go into that dream world together. So they're both inside. They can both see each other. They can both talk to each other. So they establish that. And they come back to the door, which we saw Tandy see in the previous episode. And did you notice, I noticed this time, obviously, because they pointed it out, but I didn't see in the last episode, that door was covered in the Dark Force energy.
Right. I saw it on the last episode, but I actually thought that there was for some reason I thought there was dark energy on one side and light energy on the other. But correct me if I'm wrong, it's all just the dark energy going around the door.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hadn't
so that was weird.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that last time, and maybe it was just more pronounced this time. But they see the door, and then Ty obviously knows that he needs to go up there, and he just reaches his hand out and he kind of sucks all that energy up. So he effectively unlocks the door.
Right, and it's weird. Why do you think? Because I've been trying to think about this the whole day. Why is he the lock or the key? Actually, why isn't it both of them? I can't figure out why. Team Kang. What's his name? Ivan Hess's brain or mind would be locked by just the dark energy and not the light.
Do you think it's because he's locked in a state of fear from his last moments?
Oh, that's true. That's a good one. That's
my thought, that he was really trapped in fear, and that was kind of an overlying theme throughout the whole.
Interesting.
I don't know what to call it. Ivan Hess's mind's world, is that there was a lot of fear going on there.
True.
So we have Ty pull away the dark energy, so we're thinking, great, they can get inside. So they open the door, and they appear inside what we know as the oil rig, but they don't know where they are yet. And then a worker is coming up to them, and you kind of look at the guy like maybe he's not right, and they're like, okay, well, he's kind of creepy, but it's okay because he can't see us. And Ty was kind of like, don't worry, I've done this before. They can't see us, and they can. in this particular state, they can see them, and the worker tried to kill them. So luckily, Tandy grabbed out one of her daggers and daggered him. And Ty was saying that I guess the rules are different here. So I thought that was interesting. So maybe when they are together in this dream world, or when they're inside Ivan's head at least, separately their powers aren't as strong when they see, when it's just one of them seeing the nightmares or one of them seeing the hopes. But when they're together, their powers are stronger, and the rules of the world that they're in are different.
Yeah, and it could also just be the rules are different because Ivan Hess's brain is messed up.
Yeah.
So, we're getting. I think it's good to establish that each going forward, that each brain that they zap into kind of changes the rules. So at least we won't get too caught up on details, how come they could do this in this brain, and when they went to this episode here, things are different. So at least we're getting that established.
Yeah, and I think that's good. So, they realize that they're not in 100% safe place when the worker attacks them, but then they end up finding Ivan Hess, and they're like, okay, what's going on here? And they realize that he doesn't know anything. He doesn't even know his name. He doesn't know, what's going on. And he tells them that, they're special, they're different because they have names. They're a difference between what he's seen. So we're establishing that, we're going to see that this is a pattern that's going to repeat over and over again. But most importantly, he's going to be able to carry information on between repeats. So this isn't like a repeat and reset. It's a repeat, but they get to carry the knowledge from the past over. So I thought that was really important to establish, especially for what happens later on.
Exactly.
So they're kind of telling him what his name is. Your name's Ivan Hess, and he doesn't know anything else other than that. But he's in this like weird state where he's made up this fake game of baseball, and they're in inning like 167th or something, and the score is like in the thousands, and they kind of look at each other like, what have we gotten ourselves into here? So then they're kind of asking him like, they're figuring out that they're on the rig, that this is, the point of when the explosion happened 8 years ago. And they want to know, how to stop it. So he's telling them, this is going to explode. It's what, like 2 minutes or something, a part of time that repeats over and over again?
Something like 4 minutes.
Okay. So he has, they have this amount of time to stop the explosion. So they're like, okay, great, we're gonna help you stop the explosion so that this ends. And he's telling them that you have to get to the kill switch and you have to shut off the valves, and it's at the core. And I like that scene because they're like, well, where are the switches? And he's like, it's in the core. Like, how can you not know where that is? And they're like, where's the core? And he's like, it's down in the bottom where the core is.
The core room is in the core, you idiot.
Right. Come on, don't you know where the core room is? So they're like, okay, great, we're gonna go down, that's where we need to go, to the core room. And then we got some, what I thought to be like gratuitous fight scenes. So like they got to have their fight scenes together, and this is kind of like the first time that we've seen them fight together. And I think Tandy says something to Ty like, I hope you've gotten better at your thing.
Yeah. And it's what I liked about this is that they were fighting, like they were in the same room, but they didn't do any combo moves. Like they saved that for later. So I like that they made that distinction.
Absolutely. So they're fighting through what at this point to us looks like zombie workers, who are, these oil rig workers who are just attacking them with chains and hatchets and such, and they're fighting, and they're getting through, but there's too many of them. They get overwhelmed, and they obviously waited too long to try to get down to the core, and then the explosion happens and time starts over again. So that's our first glimpse into kind of, how this world is working. So it gets reset again. They appear together in front of Ivan, and he's like, yeah, you guys didn't make it down to the core. I didn't think you were going to make it down to the core, but, hey, I'm glad you're still here. So then he's kind of explaining to them his theory of what's going on, and that he says the initial energy explosion that happens creates what he calls terrors. So he calls the workers terrors, and in his mind, this explosion infects people with pure terror, and that's what's causing them to kind of go crazy and go on a killing spree.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that was something that happened just in his head, like just in his fear, the state that he's stuck in, or do you think that's something that actually happened?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that. Like, I just accepted it as what happened. But you're right. Like, I mean, obviously he's in control of his the reality in his mind, right? So it's very possible that the coworkers just died, or but then again, I guess what I'm saying is I don't know. Because it's also possible that obviously the way the whatever they were drilling for affected Ty and Tandy. It could have had that kind of. It's completely possible for them to have become infected and become zombie-like.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Well, we're in a Marvel universe, so anything's possible. So we know they're drilling for something that's not oil. It's some unknown substance. They don't know about it. so for it to explode and then infect them, and they showed these workers like actually being like kind of infected and then possessed over into this state of like this zombie like state, for lack of a better word, of just being on a killing spree. So it's entirely possible that it happened in reality, and this is not just a figment of Ivan Hess's imagination. And so if we're taking this as being reality, what could that mean for present day New Orleans, because they're still drilling for it?
Ooh, I
You
like
know?
where your brain is
Yeah.
going. I like what you're thinking.
You know, I like that little, like, the fantasy element that they're carrying in, because there is a lot of reality based in this show. The emotions, the characters have, like, a lot of reality base. And really what we're relying on in a fantasy realm is really Ty and Tandy's powers. So to kind of introduce more of a fantasy realm of there's this substance that can infect people in some way.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
cool to carry over into reality if that's fact. If it's not just a part of his imagination because he's stuck in this fear. And maybe
Right,
that was his
right.
scientific way of explaining that he was stuck in fear. And I'll accept that, but I think it would be cool to have that as an actual carryover into reality of the show, of that being something that can infect people with terror.
True, true. And I like I mean, okay, so I don't think they've confirmed it, but there are a lot of theories about what the substance is. I'm sure you've seen people talk about this online, that it might be quote unquote dark force energy or zero matter that was that they used in other Marvel shows, most notably in Agents of Shield and Agent Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw some people get affected by dark zero matter in those series, and it had like different, like the way it's set up, it can have different effects on different people. But I like what you're thinking, that you can have like the threat of like a mass exposure to a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially the way they're setting it up here in the show. And
Mm-hmm.
and they by likening it to like a zombie plague, it's easy for viewers to get it like right away, like how
Right.
this is a bad thing, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited for that thought. So I don't know, we'll see. And maybe again, it could just be a figment of Ivan Hess's imagination and his way to explain what he's going through. But
Right,
who knows? Who knows
I like it.
that is there. So
First point goes to you.
oh, thank you. I'm sure you'll get 1,000 more. So we know that, you know, he's explaining these people as terrors, and that he's kind of telling them the process. He's like, this phone rings, and then the explosion happens. And we're like, okay. And we've all seen from the previews that we know what the phone call is, but at that point, the phone call is kind of like, yeah, this phone just rings. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal. Again, Ivan, we see that he doesn't understand anything. He doesn't know he has a daughter. He doesn't know anything about his life. All he knows is what he's stuck in.
Yeah.
So we have that. Tandy does say, you know, she's trying to pull him out of this. She's like, what about Nathan Bowen? Don't you know who Nathan Bowen is? And he's kind of like, I do know that name, Nathan Bowen. I've heard that before. And then he's like, oh, you mean that guy on the phone? And then Tandy's face completely changes, and she looks over to that phone, and she's like, oh my god, you know, that moment of realization, that's my
Right.
dad on the phone. This was the moment that, you know, we were in the car together and the car crash was happening. He was speaking to Ivan on the phone when the car crash happened.
Right.
So that was a crazy realization. So then, of course, the phone rings, and we all, like, did you collectively, like, get really emotional when you saw her face when the phone rang? And you're like, oh god, is she gonna answer it?
Yeah, not maybe not like my heart like went, you know, like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. So she answers it, and she says, Daddy, and he says, hi, pumpkin. And then, you know, I just died.
Oh, man.
At that point, I had to
Yeah.
pause it. I was like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
This is rough. Like, I thought that maybe they were gonna have her hear the conversation that he had with Ivan, and it was just going to be like a reliving of what they were talking about, but for
Right.
them to make Nathan like actually respond to her, I wasn't expecting that. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he calls her Pumpkin, and we get that little tidbit of a nickname into Tandy's past, and we'll see that we get the same information about Ty later on towards the end of the episode. But at this point, she's stuck. She's sucked into this world completely, because more than anything in the world, of course, she wants to talk to her father again. And here in this crazy place that they're in, this is something that she gets to do. So Ty is trying to get her unstuck from the phone, and he's not successful, obviously. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna try to get to the core myself. I'll take care of this myself, no big deal. So he teleports to the core room, and that's the scene where we really see how this, whatever this energy, if it's Dark Force energy, in the first explosion, how it gets into a person and then infects them to make them become this zombie-like person. So then, the explosion happens, everyone gets affected, Ty suddenly gets surrounded and he's in over his head, and then he teleports back. So then we're back, and Tandy's answering the phone again, and she's telling her dad, I miss you. And he says to her, I'm here right now. What do you want to talk about? And, I'm sorry, this was kind of interspersed with Ty trying to fight during, trying to get the valve off. And it's Tandy, talking to her dad and having this realization that she's having a conversation, what she thinks is with her actual father. And poor Ty is trying to take care of screwing off the valves all by himself. And then it explodes. So we're back again to square one.
Right.
So that was a heavy emotional scene between Tandy and even just her father's voice on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, and I like that I think that was a good idea to intersperse those two sequences. Like, you're seeing how Tandy is, they're in a way they're both struggling. They're both struggling at this point, but obviously very different kinds. Like, Tandy is her thing is like emotional, and she's just in one place, and she's talking to her dad. And meanwhile, Tyrone's like zipping around. I was actually curious to see. Like, I thought we'd have one of our two heroes like get killed or something, like, just to see what I wanted to see what would happen if it would reset or something. Yeah, but thankfully we didn't get to see that. The showrunners weren't that cruel to the characters. So I like that. I like that that little mini montage that we got there.
Yeah, and I like how you pointed out that they were both struggling, but in a different way. Tandy was struggling emotionally, and Ty is struggling physically. So, this is a rough, weird world that they're in. So then time resets again, as it does in this strange place that they're in. And all of a sudden, Tandy is now obsessed with the phone. So you kind of get this sense that time passes differently, even though it is a time-based, it's a time-based place that they're in, but it passes a bit differently. So all of a sudden, she's obsessed with the phone. She doesn't want to leave. So, Ty's really trying to get her to say, okay, this is enough, we need to get out of here, this is really dangerous, we could actually maybe die in here. And she's like, yeah, but, my dad's in here. So then he's trying to convince her, and then all of a sudden she says to him, okay, I agree with you. And you're like, did you buy that from her? Because I didn't buy that from her.
You didn't?
No.
I'm easy, I guess. I did. It's like, okay, we're gonna go out.
So you're easy like Ty, because he was like, okay, cool, she's gonna come with me.
Yeah.
And, he's like, we closed our eyes to get in here, so let's just open them. So he counts to 3, opens them, and of course, Ty's standing outside in reality, and he's there, and Tandy's next to him frozen because she's still inside. And he says something along the lines like, "Why are you such a good liar?"
Yeah. By the way, did you... Okay, so this... the first thing I caught this episode on my second watch, when they were doing the 3, 2, 1, let's go from inside Ivan's mind, because he did what I guess most people would do, or I would do, like he closed his eyes before the count. And meanwhile, she keeps her eyes open and she's like looking at him.
Yeah, she's like, yeah.
It's so cool. Yeah, and she's like just checking if he's gonna go through with it, and I like that little bit.
Yeah, like that was the most naive I think he's been that we've seen him. He was just like blindly trusting her and you're like, I wanted to shake him, like, really, Ty, you're just gonna believe her? She's a con artist and that she's conned you before and you're just gonna blindly trust her. And then I was worried when he got out because I was like, he's not gonna be able to get back in. How are they going to resolve this? And I thought that when he was kind of trying to separate Tandy from Ivan, that he was kind of like shaking Ivan's arm a little bit. I thought he was trying to get back in at that point.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't, but he was really just trying to wake up, and I was like, oh, what if he can't get back in there and she's stuck in there by herself? I mean, she did not take that into consideration, obviously because she was under such a hold from just hearing her dad's voice.
Yeah, true.
So he is able to get back in. So he touches Ivan's hand just like he did the first time, and then he's taken back.
Right.
But they did an interesting thing, because like we said, we don't know how time passes inside his head, even though it seems to pass normally. It maybe goes faster than what it would be in the real world, because Tandy is like sitting in a chair, she's got playing cards, and she's tossing them into a hat pretty well. Did you notice that? She got a lot of those into the actual hat.
Yeah, and somebody, I can't remember who, one of the writers, I think, like pointed it out, even like she really did that, and like Olivia did, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so she's like engulfed in this reality that they're in, and Ty's like, hey, you didn't come with me. And then we kind of see that she's getting lost just like Ivan. She doesn't really recognize Ty. She sees him as being somebody that maybe she knew before, but she doesn't remember his name. And then you see that really cool shot of, she knows the guy with the burned face. What did Ivan call him in that scene hiding from him?
Monsieur Flambe.
Yes, and he was so proud of that nickname. So he's coming.
True.
That was good. So he's coming in the room, and Tandy just like makes her dagger appear and just like whips it at him and hits him in the head. And Ty is like, "Whoa, where did you learn how to do that?" And you're like, "Okay, she has been in here for a while. She's gotten even better with her dagger powers while she's been in there."
Right.
So I guess that's a bonus. She got like some training time in.
Absolutely. She I like the fact that the second we see her, I don't know if you feel the same way, but the second we see her, you could tell that she's a little lost, and you could tell that it's been a while. Because I think her, like, just her posture, like,
she's like
just
slumped.
Slumped down. So you could tell, like right away you have a hint. Oh, a lot of time has passed by, and so So she was there for, I think I did some like very basic, probably wrong math.
Oh, I want to hear this.
Yeah. If she was there for, she said something like around 200 times, or she forgot counting after 200 times, and each scenario is like 4 minutes long. So she was there for around 3.5 to 4 hours. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 10 hours. Yeah, sorry, like 10 to 11 hours straight. If my math is right. So, and that's not like 10 hours for us, right? That's 10 hours of doing the same thing over and over again. That's pretty crazy. And yeah, she probably had a lot of experience fighting, throwing her daggers. And uh, uh, for me, of course, this was like a big deal. Like
Mm-hmm.
coming from the comic books, like just seeing even in the previews, just seeing her throw the daggers. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's more like what she does from the comics. And just my one of my gripes from this episode is Monsieur Flambe,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like the way they introduced him earlier, um, I thought he would have a bigger role in the episode,
Yeah.
right? Because when he first comes in, like we can tell like Ivan's like terrified of him,
Yeah.
and then the two kids like hide under the table before he comes out, and he comes out and he looks different from everyone else because he's half burned.
Yeah.
So I thought, ooh, this guy is gonna be like we're gonna see him a lot or something. And I think this is the last time we see him, when Tandy like dismisses him with like one badass shot.
Yeah. Like the most badass shot ever. Just straight to
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually have some questions about their powers, but I think I'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay. So at this point, Ty is like, okay, this is not right. How long have you been here? Why don't you remember who I am? And, she establishes that, she thinks his name is Ty, and it's more like somebody that she used to know a long time ago, and she kind of remembers bits and pieces about him. And she explains to him, she's like, I don't want to leave. I have everything I want right here. I have my cards, I have my hat, and I have my phone, so I can talk to my dad. And she's like, I remember parts of my life, and what I can remember, it was awful. And you get this really sad, emotional, plea from Tandy, where she's saying, nobody calls me. I don't have any friends. And then Ty, of course, says, yes, you do have a friend. And she's asking him, who could that possibly be? And he's saying, me. And you're like, oh, Ty, you're so sweet. And then she just cuts him right down. And she's like, we're not friends.
That was savage.
I played you. That's what I do. I play people. I made an emotional appeal to you to come to do this with me because I needed you, and I use people, and that's what I do. And Ty was like, no, that's not who you are. And like that,
right.
Like that from him, I was like, good, he stood his ground, because he could have gotten really angry with her at that point and could have been like, forget it. I'm done with this. This is all strange. I'm leaving. This,
right.
He used me again. But he's like, no, I believe that you are a better person than this. I do believe in you, and I'm going to help you. So they start arguing again, and then all of a sudden Tandy pulls a dagger on Ty. He's like, well, now we're gonna use our powers on each other. So Ty is like, Ty pulls the cord from the phone. She's able to get in like a few words with her dad when she answers the phone, but Ty pulls the cord, and then she gets angry at him, and he says to her, I'll be here every time to do it again until you stop. Telling her, I'm not going to leave you here. And that was another touching moment. I thought, like, Ty was really like, I don't care how dangerous this is, I'm not leaving you here to be sucked into this trap.
Right.
And then I like this scene because Tandy gets mad and she starts throwing daggers at him, and he's like, what the hell? This is really happening. You're really throwing your daggers at me. So of course he starts teleporting away from her, and you get this cool scene of them, using their powers. But then Ty's like, okay, if you're going to use your powers against me, then I'm going to use my powers against you. And I felt in this scene where he was really kind of yelling at her. He was saying to her, what do I have written down here? Have you told your dad the truth? Have you told him that nobody calls you? Have you told him that you have no friends? What would he think of his drug addict daughter? And I think that for me, I felt that Ty was using his power of fear against her, just like she uses her powers against him. I think he was trying to put that, because that is one of her worst fears, I would assume, is being a disappointment to her father. Did you get that out of that scene?
Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, well, actually, what's interesting too, like, I'm thinking he's using his power, but not his actual power, but like the way that the writers did it was to make that like a callback to him, like, because I didn't think of it like that, but you saying that, I'm like, oh, he is, like, that's it, that's one of her greatest fears for sure, and or maybe her greatest fear even, and
Yeah.
like Tyrone,
to use the fear. She's told him that advice before, so maybe this is him taking it.
right, yeah, you're right. So that's interesting. That's cool. That's she probably wasn't thinking that he'd use it against her,
Yeah.
right? But it shows that they're sort of improving each other's lives, or you know, and the fact that Tyrone maybe has a grasp, a better understanding of fear than the normal person because of his powers.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's got a sense of what people are afraid of, even without using them, maybe.
Yeah. And I think he understands the impact he can make when he's saying that kind of statement to somebody. And I think that he only resorted to that because she was attacking him and he needed to have some kind of leverage against her to bring her back to reality. I think that he really used that as a last resort. He didn't want to have to, who wants to say to somebody who they
Right.
consider a friend, what would your dad think about his drug addict daughter,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not even sure if we never saw Ty see that she's a drug addict, right?
I don't know if he's like seen her do it, but I know that I think she said that to him, that she takes pills.
Okay.
I think.
Right.
I'd have to go
Yeah.
back and watch the episodes just to double check, but I think he does know.
Okay, yeah, and so yeah, we get confirmation that he does know, because I think
we know because he's seen into her dreams when she's like passing out the drugs, so maybe he made that kind of connection in that way.
that kind of yeah, and he's pretty smart, so yeah. How do you feel about that? This whole, even going back to what Tandy was saying about her playing him and stuff. So they're really, with this scene and with what Ty was saying, they're really trying to hurt each other here, and I guess they both have that understanding, or that quote unquote power, that they can read each other. They know how to hurt each other, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we're getting here. Not physically, because Tandy was like missing with all of her shots.
Yeah.
While Ty was getting some
Dagger's
training of his
like
own.
just disappearing. I was like hoping they would go into one of the filing cabinets or something.
Yes, exactly. So maybe she wasn't even using, I don't know, full force daggers or
Or
something.
maybe they were being pulled into the dark force as Ty was disappearing. I don't know. I thought that was weird that they were just kind of evaporating.
Right. So they weren't hurting each other physically, but I think they were doing some damage emotionally.
Yeah. I think for Tandy, I think that's a standard reaction when somebody gets too close to her. I think that her standard is just to push people away. She doesn't want to have anybody close to her because she doesn't want to lose anybody. It hurts too much. So I think
Right.
that her saying mean and nasty things to people is just something she does. Like, she did that to Liam.
Right.
So I think that's just something that she's used to saying. Like, you're not my friend. I was playing you. I'm an awful person. And Ty's like, maybe you can push other people away like this, but you're not going to be able to push me away. I'm here for you.
Right.
Oh, feels.
So good. I know.
Ty and Tandy feels. But yeah, like to establish that friendship, I'm really glad they're doing that. To really, because they weren't like necessarily friends. They're kind of just getting to know each other. And I think in this
Right.
episode they
Yeah.
really established more of a friendship, and I really like that.
For sure.
So they're fighting, and then of course the bang happens, and they start all over again, and then it's Ty and Tandy in front of Ivan at his desk, and he looks at them and he says, "I'm sensing some aggression between you two."
Gets a little awkward here.
Yes. So then, like, that's another reminder that, as time is repeating, but it's not resetting. So they're carrying over the memories that they've gained from the previous reset over and over.
Yep.
So then Ty's like, okay, this is not working. Let me appeal more on an emotional level to her. And he says to him, you know, I would do the same thing if that was Billy on the phone. I would want to do the same thing. But I don't remember the sound of his voice anymore. I wouldn't even know if it was him. He wouldn't know if it was the real him. And then you're like, man, yeah, like that was 8 years ago. He's probably not going to remember the sound of his brother's voice. And then he says to her, and so smart, this was like such a good way to get her out of this, but to say, if this is your real dad, ask him something that Ivan wouldn't know. She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, this is Ivan's memory. He could, you know, whatever's going on in this strange world that we're in is all in Ivan's head. So ask your dad something that Ivan wouldn't know, and then you'll know if he's real. And if he can answer and he's real, I'll leave you here alone.
Yeah.
So then the phone rings, and you're like, oh God, what is she gonna ask him? So she picks up the phone, and she asks him, who's in the back of your car? And you're like, oh. And he's like, I don't understand. And then she like her face, Olivia her acting is amazing. She brought all of the emotion to that scene when she started crying, and he's saying that no one's in my backseat. And in that moment, she has that realization. And again, like, kudos to the writers, because that was such a good way to pull her out of that. You know, she didn't get hurt and like shaken back into reality. This was like a hardcore emotional pull back into herself. You know, this is not my dad. This is just a voice on the phone that sounds like my dad, and he can't answer this question. And that's when she realizes that Ty's right. She kind of comes back to her right senses.
Oof.
I know.
Again, I gotta agree with you with Olivia's acting here, and structurally, I again a plus for the writers on the question that you asked, because it's something that we have a reaction to, because we saw that earlier in the episode, because they flashed back to it, right?
Right.
So we saw young Tandy, and just to hear that the voice on the other end doesn't or can't see Tandy, it's like heartbreaking that you're like, oh, that's not your dad, that's just a programmer or something like that. And but then she keeps talking to him, right? And that even like that got me too. I'm like, oh, she knows it's not her real dad, but she still has to say stuff. She has to say, I miss you or something.
And that was the therapeuticness for her. When she realized, this is not my dad, but let me just say what I need to say so that I can put some kind of closure on this. You know, telling him I miss you, and being able to sit, you know, not having a conversation with him anymore in a real sense, but saying to him what she would have wanted to say to him if she had the chance, if she knew, like, this is the last time I'm going to get to talk to you, this is what I would say. So I think that had a good therapeutic kind of closure for her. But again, I'm just so happy that was the way that they pulled her out of this. It wasn't like, oh, the phone got destroyed and she can't ever talk to him again because of that. It wasn't just some silly plot mechanism. It was really deeply emotional. And that's
like a realization.
Yeah, that's part of what made this episode so good. Because then from there, she was able to see, like, and Tandy is so smart, so she was able to see, this pulled me out, this emotional plea pulled me out of my state. Yeah. I can use an emotional plea to pull Ivan out of his state. So that set her up for the next scene. So they reset again, and Tandy looks at Ivan, and he's holding the cookie, and he kind of smells it each time the time is set, because he's trying to guess the ingredient, like they were saying in the beginning with the flashbacks with little Mina. You know, she wouldn't tell him what that secret ingredient is. and Tandy's saying, she grabs the cookie and she's like, "Where did you get this from?" And at first he kind of jokes, like, what a philosophical question, like, where did the cookie come from? And she's like, no, like, your daughter made this for you, and you need to be there for your daughter. And she says something along the lines like, sometimes shit happens and dads can't be there for their daughters, but when you have a choice, you have to make the right choice.
Yeah.
And then the phone rings, and Ty is us, like, behind, going, oh shit, the phone rang again. Like, and the look on his face was like the look on mine, like everything froze, and Tandy kind of looks down at the phone, and she's like, and she picks it up, and I was like, no, don't talk on the phone again, but she just hangs it up right away.
Right. And it's important that she was the one who did that.
Yes, absolutely. Ty let her do that. He didn't reach out and like disconnect the phone or like kind of sneak behind Ivan and like unplug it so it wouldn't ring.
What an asshole if you did that, right?
Right. He's like, don't mind me, I'm in the background trying to prevent a disaster from happening.
And you see him like sneaking back because Tandy put it down anyway on her own.
Right.
It's like, ooh, okay, oops.
So, she hangs up the phone. You're like, okay, good. And she's like, your daughter Mina made this for you in her special easy bake oven, and it's her special recipe. And then she says to him, it's cardamom. Cardamom's the secret ingredient. And that was like the realization for Ivan Hess. He's like,
right.
Yeah, that's the secret ingredient. Mina didn't get to tell me. And that emotional plea to him was what got him to come back to himself and say, oh my God, I have a daughter. I need to get back to her. So that was deep, because I was worried. I was like, are they going to be able to pull him out of this state? Because he's going to be important to the plot at some point.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that they were able to pull him out, really, because I wanted Mina to have her dad back more than anything. But to see that they were able to reach him and that they used that emotional plea of that father-daughter bond. Such good writing in this show.
Yeah. And I'm correct, right? He took a bite of the cookie. That's how he kind of got it.
Yeah, he started remembering, like, what did he say? He said cardamom. It's a natural antidepressant.
Antidepressant, and, right?
She really cares about him, and that, like, remembering that he had a daughter and having that all come like flooding back to him. That emotion is what pulled him out of that catatonic state into, okay, we need to do something to get out of this place.
Right. So it's I like that, it's a callback to the title, like Lotus Eaters. So you eat the lotus, you become in a state of apathy, but you eat a cookie, it takes you out of it. So
that is a good advertisement for the power of cookies. I like it.
I didn't even know what cardamom was. Like, I've never even heard of it. So I'm like, oh,
it's not, I don't think it's like too common of an ingredient, but it is a lot in baking. So
okay.
And then Ivan has probably one of the best lines in the episode, and one of the lines that got me like right in the feels. And he looks at Tandy and he says, "You, my dear, are your father's daughter." And I'm like, oh, come on. He just smiles, and she's like, "I know I am." And I'm like, oh, these two, come on.
Yeah. And then it gets sad again because he forgets.
I know. So then time resets. And okay, so even though they've been setting up the whole time, that time that time resets, but it doesn't it restarts but doesn't reset memories. They've been establishing that the whole time. Did you still have a fear that Ivan didn't carry over what they had just gone through?
Yeah, is it because he smelled the cookie again?
Yeah, it was like they were starting over, and I think Ty and Tandy kind of looked at each other like, "Oh God, does he remember?"
Yeah.
And I felt like I was right there with them, like, "Oh my God, please remember, because it's almost the end of the episode and we have to get out of here."
What if he forgot? Jeez.
Yeah, like, oh, we have to do this again. Really, come on. But then he's like, "Yeah, let's go. We got to get this done." And they're like, thank God, okay, he remembers. So, they realize that they have to shut the valves off. And maybe they realized this before a time reset. They kind of went through this, this is Ivan's mind, Ty says, and he's like, I shut the valves off and hit the kill switch, but it didn't do anything. But this is Ivan's mind. He's the one who has to do it. And he's saying, it's impossible, we can't get down there. And they're like, nah, we can get you down there. You didn't factor in, that we're here.
Yeah.
That was a conversation, and then he said to Tandy, you're your father's daughter. Oh, that line, that got me again. So then they go on their really cool fight scene.
Yeah.
They gotta get like a part of a video game where like you have somebody with you that you need to protect, but you also have to fight everything else.
Yes, I was thinking that. Yeah.
Like I was like, ooh, those I don't like those
escort
videos.
mission.
Yes, like ooh, I don't like those because it's like that person is always doing something stupid, and you're like, stop, I need to kill this thing. But he successfully got down there. But how cool were they? Like Tandy was like super good with her daggers, and she was just like throwing her daggers at everything she saw.
That was fierce. That was have you seen the Netflix Marvel shows? Were you able to see any of those?
I have not started them yet, no.
Right. So there's always like a hallway fight scene in one of those.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a recurring theme almost. Yeah, you have like a hallway of generic bad guys, and then your heroes come in, and that's how they show the different approaches. Like Daredevil would take care of this hallway scene in a different way, and then Punisher would do it in a completely different way. And I was just so happy because to see, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is their hallway scene. And I love the fact that it was all combo moves. It was all Tyrone like being bait, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much being bait, and then he'd do the blinky thing, and then I love Tandy's moves. And for me, I was like remembering, oh yeah, she's a ballerina. She's the agile one, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So she had like jump strikes and running strikes and yeah, I loved it. I have a question. I want to bring this up. So when they first got to Ivan's mind,
mm-hmm.
didn't Tyrone say something like our powers maybe work a bit different here?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he said something like it's easier here.
Yeah, things are easier here.
Right, and we see that throughout the episode. Like Tandy gets an upgrade, and Ty gets better at his powers. And here we see them at, I don't know, full power, I guess.
Like peak performance.
Do you think this will carry on to the real world, or is it just because it's easier for them here?
I don't know. Like, I think it will carry on to the real world. I think that. That's hard to say, because I think that like Tandy definitely gained more of a skill. Now, Ty, I think maybe to really hone his powers, he probably needs to learn some more about how to fight. But being able to teleport away out of danger,
for sure.
Because I was thinking like, okay, Ty can teleport, which is super useful. So if somebody's going to attack him, he can teleport out of the way, like he's done before. But like he doesn't have a weapon like Tandy does, so he would have to garner some fighting skills from somewhere.
Right.
But I think that they will carry that over into reality. But maybe it won't be. I don't know.
That much?
Yeah.
Like I hope so. Like I don't want them to be. I don't want Tandy to like throw her dagger in the real world and it misses terribly or something, or she can't throw it far. It just disappears.
It isn't as good as it is. Like she won't get him like dead in the heart like she was hitting them in the dream world. Yeah.
And quickly, one thing I point out there is a sound effect for Tandy's, like a sound cue for Tandy's dagger. It's so faint, but there's like a little wong kind of effect.
Yeah.
I like hearing that. And what did you think? Well, how did you feel seeing? Because there hasn't been too much cloaking and daggering in this series so far. So how did you feel seeing that?
I liked it a lot, like especially compared to when they first got in there and they had like their little gratuitous fight scene in the beginning, And then,
Yeah.
like you pointed out, like they were actually working together this time. And really seeing the development and the understanding and the bond between the both of them, because they're going to have that bond, that understanding to really be able to fight together. And they had that shared mission of protecting Ivan to get him down to the core. And
Right.
like Ty was he was really cool, but I couldn't stop focusing on how cool it was for Tandy to just be like throwing her daggers left and right and just like doing those cool moves that she was doing. And
We're badass.
and that was like how they had something as simple as the playing cards that she was tossing into a hat. Like it's the same motion. So she was doing that over and over and over again, and then she's suddenly throwing her daggers over and over with accuracy, just like the accuracy she had with the cards. So it's like, man, like that was a really cool scene. I was glad to have a fight scene, for sure.
Yeah, and then another thing I noticed, I really like Aubrey. I don't know if it was like in the script or anything, but there was like a part where he really was acting like he was losing his balance, because if you remember the whole rig is supposed to be like off balance during this time, so you can see him in the background while Tandy's killing a few of the characters, like he's like trying to grab onto the floor or something like that. So I like that little bit.
And they had that too when they were just talking, when they would get to those scenes where there was like the explosion was more imminent, that it looked like everything was shaking, and then that made me think like, I wonder like if they were just acting that, or if there was like an element to this set that did just randomly shake. So it did make me think about that. I don't know how things are filmed like that, and probably they were just acting it, but or the camera was shaking, and then they were acting along with it. But I did catch that.
The camera shakes in every episode though, so.
True. So we have our fight scene, and then we get down to the core, and we're going through, getting these guys, and Ivan hits the kill switch, and he's shutting the valves off, and then the explosion is imminent, and he closes the last valve, and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna be stuck in there? And then they wake up and they're back in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And Ty and Tandy are like, okay, this worked, and Ivan opens his eyes, and you're like, oh my god, he's back. And then you're like, okay, so what carried over into reality? And he's looking at them and going, who the hell are you guys? And you're like, oh. Oof. I was a little disappointed that he wasn't going to remember who they were. But then I was like, no, that's okay. Yeah. And I think Ty and Tandy had that. Yeah. They were like, it's okay, he's here. And of course, the first thing he's like, I don't know who the hell you guys are, but I need my daughter.
Yeah.
So he right away asks for Mina, and then the next scene, you see Mina running into the hospital, and she's got her bag of cookies, and she has this emotional reunion with her dad. And Ty and Tandy are still there, and it's like, I don't know how they were there for that long, and like nobody came into the room to like, but whatever, we'll just suspend reality for that. But they're watching the heartwarming scene of Ivan in bed and reuniting with Mina and them getting cookies, and Ty's like, to Tandy, he's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah. You could see that she appreciated him asking her that. Maybe Ivan doesn't remember what happened in his mind, but definitely Ty and Tandy brought something out of that with their relationship together.
And I feel like Ty probably wanted to like hug her or something.
But her. Like just
yeah.
Yeah.
But we know what happens when that happens, so.
Right. So then, you have that emotional scene, and then Ty and Tandy both go home, and, well, Tandy goes to the church, and she puts her hoodie on.
Yes.
Her little tie hoodie. And they're kind of like, getting comfortable, and you see Ty in his bedroom, and he has like this secret compartment in the wall, and he opens it up and he pulls out a box, and it's this old shoe box. And I wrote in my notes, I called it the Billy box. But in the box, did you notice when he was rifling through the box that ballet slipper was in there?
Yeah. and also I didn't see other things. There was like I saw dice, and
there was like a
lot of Yeah, and pictures of Billy, so that
Mhm.
it makes sense that that's what you'd have in there. And for Tandy, notice that I don't know. I just noticed that she didn't no drugs. Didn't need drugs. Didn't need the to listen to music.
Oh, she didn't
So
is a good point.
yeah, the
She
hoodie was
wasn't
enough.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Oh, points for Butch. That's a
So
good. That
so
was good to point
ah,
out. Yeah.
shucks. No, but yeah, I wish it was someone else who told me. But uh um again the changes that she's going through because of Ty, that's another one. So
Yeah,
pretty
because
cool.
when they were showing her when she was laying down, they kind of panned forward, and they've had this scene before when they panned forward. And it was to her drugs, and I got worried that
Right.
that's what they were gonna pan forward to, and they pan forward
Yeah.
to her phone, and you're like, okay, she's not gonna do that tonight. And then that really that got me. Like, she listens to him. Like, she pretends that she's this badass, like this hard ass who's not gonna listen to people, but she listens to Ty. What he says to her
Yeah.
obviously has an effect on her.
Right. And then the episode ended, and that's it.
Okay. Or we could talk
But
about
there's
the scene
more.
I don't want to talk about. um, okay, so you can close your ears, but I'll talk about the scene where Ty pulls out the tape recorder from the
And
box.
yeah, and then the phone
And
rang.
oh, and then the phone rang, and Tandy realizes that Ty is calling her, and you're like,
Oh
oh.
boy.
And he just says, I need somebody to talk to. And he's like, I pulled out this box, and my brother and I had this tape recorder that my dad gave us, and we were playing around with it. And he's like, I just need to talk to somebody who would understand. And you can see on her face that even though she kind of jokes with him, that she's so happy that he called her.
Yeah.
Like, so that just got me, because it's like, Ty is a good guy, and she's
Sure, yeah.
realizing that. She's like, maybe I shouldn't push this guy away so far. So then she tells him to play the tape. And it's Ty and Billy. And this is where we get Billy calls Ty Ty.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? So it's Pumpkin and Ty. So we got those nicknames for
Little
both of them.
nicknames.
Yeah. There's to get that little emotional jab in there. And it's
Ty.
Billy and Ty are like beatbox rapping. And it's a really cute little rap, and then it ends with Billy not really knowing what to say, and
That was
laughing
so
and
cute.
saying, this is harder than I thought it was, and Tandy's laughing with Ty that, like, that was pretty good, and she's like, but you were terrible, and he's like, yeah, and she says to him, it's because you hadn't met me yet, and he's like, yeah, that's gotta be why. And she says to him, instead of like hanging up on him, she's like, play it again, let's listen to it again. So she got to have that her dad on repeat. She's like, I'll be here with you while you listen to Billy as long as you need to. And then the episode ended.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
That was what was that, like 2 minutes? Like 2 or 3 minutes straight of like non-stop feels, man.
Non-stop emotional feels, yes.
God damn, and the good kind too. Like really, they got us again, but in a nice way, in the way that we prefer.
And I like the song that they used throughout. So like they started in the beginning and then they ended with the song, and it's called Sons and Daughters by the Decemberists. I don't know if that'll be on the Cloak and Dagger Spotify playlist, but it is a really good song.
It's better. Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of ended with the last part of the chorus of the song where they're talking about bombs fading away, and it's like,
Yeah.
so the explosion happened and it's done, and now we're back in reality and we're coming back into this. But again, like, though Ivan didn't get to carry that what happened out into reality, I'm so glad that Ty and Tandy got to build their relationship in that, even if it was in that crazy world, they still got to build that relationship and have that time together. So we got plot advancement, we got character development, and we got use of powers all in one episode.
Everything that people are asking for.
Yeah,
And
everything we wanted.
such a good episode too, like the whole We were talking about this last week. If we could pick like a recurring motif for last week's episode, it was like building up energy and like energy coming out, right? Like they
Yeah.
kept referencing that.
Yeah, and
So-
rebirth and renewal.
Yeah, for this one we had a lot of for this one it was like looping, like you're getting repetition, like from obviously from the stuff with Ivan's mind and even the stuff with like for me like the stuff with when they were fighting, like Dagger just kept throwing the knives and Ty kept blinking away, so there you have like repetition there, and even at that end scene where there's that callback to first of all that freaking callback to Tandy saying that nobody calls her and then Tyrone calls her. It's
Ty
like,
calls her,
oh,
I know.
Jesus.
I know.
yeah, and then you end with play it again. So that's like the perfect line to end this episode.
Yeah. So like how repetition can be dangerous too. Like you can't let yourself get stuck in the past. But
Yeah.
it's okay to learn from the past and to move on from that and to have somebody with you who can help you through that.
Absolutely, and even that's a callback to I think wasn't Auntie saying something like that during the last episode about
Yeah.
learning from the past, and of
Mhm.
course from episode 3 where we see Tandy and Tyrone were stuck in time loops of their own,
Mhm.
and they were all like try something different and all that, and we had that here
Yeah.
when they were the difference, and because of that they were able to see the effect of that they succeeded in their mission. They got the happy ending for Ivan and Mina. So
Yeah.
it's good to see that's them being heroes, and we got the super stuff, we got the powers,
Yeah.
and now we get them doing heroic stuff and seeing the good things that they can do.
Yeah.
To get them out of whatever rut that they're in for the first 4 or 5 episodes.
Absolutely. So again, this was my favorite episode so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being my favorite episode of the season, because of everything that we talked about, and really just such superb writing in this show and the direction and how everything is put together. And
Yeah.
big giant kudos to the actors. They just bring, you can write emotion on paper, but to have that acted out and really brought to life, amazing. And again, let me go back to my notes. Tim King, who played Ivan Hess, amazing.
Yeah,
That
he was so good.
Yeah, he was
That's like
really,
the-
really good.
He played off both of them so well because he added he kept he played his part perfectly, like
Yeah.
kind of like a blank slate,
Yeah.
and then towards the end he starts getting the emotions, and he was so good. I hope we see more of him.
I hope so too. And you know,
Yeah.
I think that again he'll be super important for the plotline, because I think one of the most important plot lines we learned was right in the beginning when they were talking about those superconductive tiles and how they didn't get delivered. And like you said,
Right.
as we learned from Stan the Man in the last episode, that Foxconn is a company that cuts corners sometimes, and I think that is something that's going to come into play, especially now that, and maybe we won't see more of Ivan himself, but I think we'll see more of Ivan through Mina, with him being able to give her the knowledge that she needs, and her telling him,
Yeah.
this is what's been happening over the past 8 years. Hey, I'm your daughter, brilliant scientist who's carried on your work.
Mhm.
So definitely, I didn't see the trailer for the next episode, but what did you see it?
I did. I'm trying to think if this is gonna be a spoiler. I mean, I guess it's a trailer, right? So and anything is fair game in the trailer.
I think so. Anything's fair game.
Yeah. So anyway, the only thing I noticed is that Ty is wearing the freaking cloak, and he has like a little mission that he has to do. So I'm super excited about that. I barely remember anything else in the trailer. All I saw is that he was wearing the cloak, and he looked so cool in the shadows. And one of the writers for this episode, Peter Calloway, he mentioned that the next episode is going to be even better, which
I
mean,
don't know if I can handle that.
I don't know if that's even possible.
I don't know.
And even Joe Pokaski, the showrunner, he was like I don't know. He was like oddly mentioning that episode 8 would be really something. Like, and the way he said it, I'm kind of afraid.
I know. Like,
for
okay,
this
well,
is
who else
not
are they
gonna
gonna
be good.
kill? Like, that's exactly where my mind goes, because I'm like, stop killing these characters.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried, but it's gonna be memorable, I think. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. So that's it for our recap review of episode 7, Lotus Eaters. We did put out a poll this week on Twitter, so we kind of did our round 2 of who do you want to see more of from a supporting character standpoint, and this was kind of like the family edition. So
Right.
poll results. In first place was Auntie with 45%. Not really.
Ooh, 45.
45% for Auntie.
Oh.
Melissa Bowen, Tandy's mom, came in second with 30%. Otis Johnson, Ty's dad, came in third with 15%, and Adina came in fourth with 10%. Adina Johnson,
What?
Ty's mother.
Oh, that changed from the last time I checked. Jeez.
Yeah. So definitely, clear winner was Auntie. And I
Yeah.
agree. I voted for Melissa only because I wanted to see some kind of closure with her
Okay,
and
right.
Greg.
Yeah.
So on that. But if I had another vote, I think I also would have voted for Auntie, just because that mythology that they add in with the voodoo is so cool.
Yeah. I feel guilty now because I voted for Auntie because I like her.
I like her too,
She's
yeah.
whenever she comes out, it's like fun. But honestly, I wanted to vote for Adina because Melissa, we've seen a lot of her.
True.
Otis had his big moment, his big episode,
Yeah.
Spy Boy Otis.
Yeah.
And Adina so far has not had. We've had snippets here and there, but I want an Adina focused episode because the actress is so good and
Oh
the
yeah.
character is so good.
And all these actors are amazing. And I think
Yeah.
we will get more of these characters in season 2. I think that they'll have more time to kind of explore their character development and how they play in. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a scene coming up next week where there's going to be Ty and his parents and Tandy? I thought I saw.
Oh,
something
yeah.
about that.
That was the exclusive Nerdist clip, and it's fun again. It's so in line with what Tandy did in episode 5, because for the preview of that, she just randomly showed up in Thai school,
Right.
and this time she just kind of randomly shows up at Thai's house.
Oh my gosh. Well, she does that.
So
She can get.
yeah, exactly. True, and that's her being her, and I really hopefully she meets. I want her to meet Ty's mom. Like I can imagine
Ty's parents too.
that's gonna be a lot of fun. She's
I
so
want
much
her
fun.
to,
She's just
see where he comes
random.
from. You know, I want her
Yeah.
to know more of his life, because I feel like he knows a lot about her life. Maybe not, because he doesn't know about her mom and such. But I think that in
Yeah.
a way he knows more about her life than she knows about
Yes.
him. So I want her to have that exposure into him. Oh, and I want to say one more thing before I forget. I really, really, really like how they do not over makeup Olivia. She just has like a natural look. She's wearing. I wore one of my football shirts today in ode to her.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
She's not like overly dressed up. She doesn't have like way too much makeup on. Her hair looks perfect for her age in the show. They did like a really good job, and she's beautiful, and like that beauty shines through, and it helps that emotion and who she is as a character shine through without having like extra layers on top of it. So I really appreciate that in the show. We don't have a costume for her yet as such as Dagger, but the way that they dress her and do her styling as Tandy is perfect.
Thank you for saying that, because a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, was actually bugging me. She was like, "Bring that up on like ask Kat." Like she knows like you're into cosplay and stuff. She was like, "Ask Kat about Olivia's looks and her makeup, like specifically." I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna bring that up. Like, is that
Bring it up.
Would anyone ever notice that?" But like, yeah, you brought it up, and I can't see makeup on anyone, so it's cool that it's a big thing for you. Like you noticed it.
I mean, they just make her look like a normal person. They're not like trying to
Right.
make her look overly supermodel beautiful. She's got really
Yeah.
soft eye makeup. She's got like a really
Okay.
great foundation, and she has like natural lips. And that just makes
Okay.
her look just like an everyday normal person. And you look at these characters and you look at Olivia, and she's homeless, she lives in a church. So in reality, she's not gonna have these resources, you know?
Yeah.
She gets dressed up and more made up when she needs to, like when she was doing the party,
Escort service.
yeah, the party thing in the
Yeah.
escort service, and when she went to the ballet. But on a normal everyday
Right.
basis, she's wearing just normal clothes. She wears jeans and like tank tops and flannels, and she just has this really soft look, and I just think it's absolutely perfect because she looks normal. She looks like a regular person. And
Yeah.
what does your friend think about the makeup? Does she like it?
No, she didn't want to tell me because she didn't want to say. She wanted to hear what you would say before she, didn't want me to to have any preconceived, notions about it.
Well, that's my thought.
But she brought it up, so I'm like,
Yeah.
there has to be something interesting going on there.
Well, you
I'm
look
like,
at
I
somebody
don't
like-
see it.
I don't know even know who to compare it to. But I guess if you think of somebody like a Harley Quinn kind of character who's like really made up, like that's
Okay,
not,
yeah,
that's
for
more
sure.
of like a fake.
Yeah, artificial.
That suspends the reality more. So to have Tandy so natural brings
Yeah.
me into the story more and helps me relate to her as a character.
Yeah, and that goes hand in hand with the natural feel of the show, right? Like
Mhm.
the handheld shots, like the way the being shot on location. There's a lot of honesty in the filmmaking, I guess, in
Yeah.
that sense. So that's probably part of it.
And Evita's the same way when she's in the scenes. They're just
Okay.
normal.
Yeah.
They're normal kids. They're not. I guess my comparison would be to Shadowhunters. When you're thinking,
Okay.
I'm thinking of a character specifically, Isabel Lightwood, but it's in her character
Okay.
to be more full makeup. The red lips. She's wearing like provocative type clothing. That's her character. That's how she was written. She likes to dress like that. So I
Right.
think that if they had carried something like that over to Tandy, I
Mhm.
wouldn't have believed in her as a believable character as much, just because
Right.
of her circumstances.
Yeah.
Again, she's homeless.
Yeah.
She lives in a church. She's not going to have all of these resources.
Okay.
And her hair is not like, they don't go over the top with her hair. It's just, she wears it loosely. She looks like a regular teenage girl. And I appreciate that. And like I said, Olivia's beautiful, so she doesn't need to be covered up with a whole bunch of makeup to pull off
Yeah.
Tandy.
Yeah. She's so gorgeous. I'm sorry. I was
She
just
is.
thinking of
And
she has-
that helps her emotion come through when she's acting. She doesn't have to play through a mask. That's her.
right. Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So if anybody who is involved in the show listens to this podcast, thank you for not overdoing Tandy's character with makeup and excessive clothing and everything. She's perfect. Her style is perfect. So that's my tangent on makeup and clothes. So those were our poll results. We do have some Twitter comments if you want to go ahead and read through those, Butch.
Oh yeah. Thank you to our listeners who commented this week. Their thoughts on episode 7. The Chad at CH Fuji says this was definitely a great episode with some awesome dialogue and action. It was a great way for the duo to get a grip on their powers without having to sacrifice multiple episodes to do so. As well, the phone call at the end was adorable and sweet. Thank you, the Chad Queen. How do you say this? Queen Katia, Katia.
I'm getting to the thread. Let me look. I think it's Katia. That's how I'm.
Okay, Queen.
Yeah.
At Queen Katya says, I thought it was filmed brilliantly. I felt like I was in the scenes with them. Clever, well-written lines delivered by an awesome trio. Hashtag Cardamom.
Cardamom, yes.
But X-Man.
I agree. Like, just to make a little comment, I feel like I'm in the scenes with them too. And again, that's like such good writing to pull us in like that, and again with the acting to pull us into those scenes. I felt like I was in there with them, and that's something that continues through each episode. I don't feel like just a distant watcher. I feel like a participant of the show.
Okay, that's interesting. X-Man at X-Man Rises says, I think episode 7 was the defining moment of Cloak and Dagger. Tyrone is now in control of his powers, and their connection got stronger. Great fight sequence with them too. The team chemistry was off the charts.
I like the reference to chemistry. We had a lot of
always, right? Yeah.
Hashtag.
And Jesse Shodell at Jesse Shodell 2 says, best episode yet. The divine pairing at their absolute best.
Yes.
Finest. Sorry, absolute finest. And we have one more, I think. Yeah. H Can at Spawn of Oz says, easily the best episode yet, with a high concept storyline to boot. Very emotional and great performances all around. So thanks to everyone who commented on our thread. And I saw a lot of other threads. A lot of people are organizing like their own little private Cloak and Dagger groups or message groups, and it was so cool because I just randomly came across while looking through the Cloak and Dagger hashtag, like this group of people. I'm not even sure if they're friends in real life or they just met because of the show, and they're like, guys, I'm excited for episode 7, and the other one's like, yeah, who's here? And the other one's like, I'm here. You know, it's just so cool seeing the community grow and the group sort of coming together. And we only have 3 episodes left, so I hope that. I know, it's so sad.
I have no doubt that we're gonna get a season 2, though. No doubt.
The panel is coming up soon in like next week on
Comic-Con.
San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah,
I'm sure
that's like
there.
The timing on that is perfect, right?
Yes. It's got to be announced there.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna get a season 2. We have 3 episodes left, and Butch and I are still going to be here, so we're still going to be running hiatus episodes. We're going to be going every 2 weeks instead of every week. So we're still going to be here to talk about Cloak and Dagger. I don't know what we're going to talk about for the entire time, but we're going to figure that out. Of course, we're going to have to rank our episodes and talk all about the characters, but definitely we'll pull some more of the comic book into our hiatus episodes after we get a really good taste of, when season 1 is over, a good way to compare and contrast between the show and the comic book.
Yeah, we'll have probably have like character specific episodes, like one on Stanman and
yes.
I want him back. I'm sorry, I want him back. Oh man, that'd be sad. Oh god. Oh boy.
But we'll still be here to talk about Cloak and Dagger. So episode 8 is next week. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're on episode 8 already.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So again, thank you guys so much for listening to us and continuing to follow along. As always, shout out your comments to us on Twitter. If there's anything you would like us to discuss on the show, please let us know. And we would appreciate if you guys can jump on iTunes and give us a rating over on iTunes. 5 stars is always a nice thing to see. So thank you to those of you who have given us a rating over on iTunes. But yeah, thank you guys for your continued support, and we will be back next week with our Season 8 recap review. Season 8. that's dreaming right there. Episode 8. How about that? Episode 8 recap review. Any final words, Butch?
No, that's it. If you guys have nothing to do on Facebook, go look for my Cloak and Dagger group, facebook.com/Marvel Cloak Dagger, and I'll be doing my art thing for the podcast. I post the raw art on Instagram. Just look for me at Butch Mapa.
Yes, and as always, be sure to check out our sister podcasts on our network. So we also have a podcast for Shadowhunters, we have a podcast for Siren, we have a podcast geared towards writers called the Writer's Block Podcast, and pretty soon we're coming out with a podcast with myself and our producer Abel about Funko Pop.
Yay!
So that's actually coming out soon, August. So be sure to check out those. And another shout out, of course, to our group, The Collective. Check them out on Twitter, guys. Just search for hashtag The Collective to find more comic book references for your listening pleasure. Thank you again to everybody who's part of The Collective for supporting us, and we will continue to support you. So that's all for this week. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you check out the show's description down below so you can follow us on social media. Talk to you next time.